Hi, Otto here for Bavarian Autosport. In today's video, we're going to be showing you how easy it is to install the UUC Short Shift Kit and DSSR shifter rod. This will substantially reduce your shifter throw, as well as make your shifter nice and crisp and tight. We'll get right into that after we show you the parts we're going to be using. Now you can see the layout of the parts we're going to be using today. This is the star of the show, the actual short shifter assembly. This is the DSSR, the double shear shift rod. These are the parts that come with the double shear shift rod. These pins replace the pins that are on the normal original equipment selector rod that you saw earlier. These are the bushings and the rest of the parts for the shifter assembly. This is the cup that mounts the shifter into our aluminum support arm. A new support pin for the support arm at the transmission. Delrin bushings for the front pin. And these small Allen screws will mount the cup into our support arm. Now, other pieces we'll be looking at, we're going to install a new forward connector joint that connects the DSSR to the transmission shifter output rod itself. We will need new exhaust gaskets. These are manifold to cat gaskets. We're going to drop the complete exhaust as one unit altogether. If we need a flex disc, we'll be installing it. We have new flex disc bolts, flex disc nuts. These are lock nuts, so they should be renewed. What else do we have here? We have the UUC urethane transmission mounts and support cups. We'll install those while we're down there looking right at them. We'll be using the Liqui-Moly anti-seize compound on various nuts and bolts. We'll use them specifically on the exhaust nuts and bolts. And in order to ease our disassembly, especially with the exhaust, we'll be using the Deoxit Mechanical. This is a penetrant and lubricant, and it works excellently. So now that we've seen all that, let's get this car up in the air and do some work. All right, now you have the underside of the vehicle. To get the shift kit in, we're going to be removing the exhaust completely, since the shifter is up here and we need to get underneath. We'll be disconnecting the front of the drive shaft from the flex disc, as well as the center bearing, which is back about the middle of the exhaust there, removing this shielding, and then we'll be able to get to the shifter assembly, and we'll show that in more detail. Right now, we'll be disconnecting the forward connection of the catalytic converter to the exhaust manifolds, the hanger here. We'll disconnect the oxygen sensor, just unplug the harness, leave the sensor in the muffler. And we'll continue back and release all the hangers on the exhaust. We'll drop the cat and the exhaust as one complete assembly. We can use, if you're doing it on the floor, use a jack and jack stands. Here we'll just use two people. All right, now here we are ready to disconnect the forward exhaust flanges, the catalytic converter pipes, to the downpipe manifolds. We will do 3 nuts on this flange, and up here on this flange there's 3 nuts on the flange for this pipe as well. Now, we have already prepped this by spraying the mechanical penetrant on all of the nuts. We've done that on all of our exhaust connections already in preparation. Those are the stains that you see. Did this one as well. Now these are typically 14mm nuts. They are on this application. We'll come on. All right, now I've got the all of 6 of the nuts off of the flanges. I'm going to come to this middle hanger bracket, and we'll work this off. Okay, and I've been turning this out by hand here, and there we go. So see, that's a bolt in the lower part of the bracket. Okay, and now we're going to continue through the rest of the exhaust, removing the center rubber hangers and the rear muffler hangers. At that point, we'll lower the complete exhaust and get it off the vehicle. I'm going to go off camera and finish up the exhaust here. All right, now we've got the complete exhaust disconnected except for the rubber hangers here and our oxygen sensor, which is right here. I'm going to remove the oxygen sensor harness from its clip and undo the plug right here. Okay, there's the plug, just let it hang. Now the oxygen sensor will come out with the catalytic converter. Now I have a helper down at the other end holding the muffler up. I'm going to work these rubber hangers off. Okay, and now we've got the second one just about set. Pull it off. Okay, now the whole exhaust is actually free at this point. I'm going to pull it down off of the flanges. There we go. Now it is ready to be lowered at the rear. My helper is going to get it off the final clamp at the rear there. All right, now I found that I couldn't get the pipes past the studs on the manifolds in this cross brace, so I took the one bolt on the cross brace out to lower it. Now we can slide everything right back. And we'll just move it out from under the car. All right, now that we have the exhaust off, the next thing is this heat shield, and then we can get to the center bearing for the drive shaft and the flex disc bolts. We'll then be ready to access into the shifter itself. All right, now I've got my 10mm. I'm going to take the heat shield off. There's about 6 or 8 bolts on this. We'll remove them all and just lower the heat shield. Okay, now I've got all the bolts out on the heat shield. Lower it over the exhaust hangers. Get that out of the way. And here's our center bearing. We're going to remove these two 10mm nuts on the center bearing, and that'll allow us to pull the middle of the drive shaft down. We'll then take care of the flex disc bolts. Here we are removing the nuts on the center bearing. There's 2 nuts. These are 13mm. Simply just pull them off. Once the nuts are off, the center bearing will be free to fall from the floor, as you can see. We'll now remove the bolts and nuts on the flex disc. We'll remove the 3 bolts that secure the drive shaft flange to the flex disc. For the moment, we'll leave the 3 bolts that secure the flex disc to the transmission output flange. Once the bolts and nuts are removed, we simply pull the drive shaft down and back and remove it from the flex disc. We can just let the drive shaft hang out of the way. We'll now remove the 3 remaining bolts and nuts, which are securing the flex disc to the transmission output flange. Once the flex disc is removed, inspect it for any cracks. Any cracks on the flex disc indicate a need for replacement at this time. Next stage is to remove the shifter selector rod. The rod is secured to the bottom of the shifter and the transmission forward connector via snap clips. We'll remove the clips and then pull the rod out of the shifter and the connector up front. Remove the snap ring clip, which secures the securing pin on the transmission connector, by pushing it forward so it comes off of the connector. Next, we remove the forward connector stub. The securing pin is held in place by a snap ring in a groove on the stub. We'll push the snap ring out of place, and then we can push the pin out. We can use a screwdriver or a small pry tool to pry or push the clip out of the groove on the connector. Once the clip is pushed forward and removed, we can then push the securing pin upward. Here I'm using an Allen tool and prying on it from below to push the pin upward. When the pin is removed, the connector can be pulled off. Note the groove for the snap ring, which secured the pin in place. There's the snap ring. We'll now remove the securing pin for the shifter support arm. This is the new pin. We're going to pry the clip on the pin upward to release it from the transmission. We can then pull the pin out. Use a screwdriver along the side of the transmission to push the clip upward to remove it from the rib on the top of the transmission. This can take a little bit of patience. Just keep trying at it and eventually you'll get it pushed up. Now that it has been pushed up, we pull the pin out and there's the old pin. You can see the clip part actually broke off. Now inside the car, we need to remove the shift knob and the shifter boot. This is a UUC shift knob, so we're removing it with an Allen head screw. A standard original BMW shift knob simply pulls off. It has a snap on the bottom and you simply just pull it straight off. Now we unclip the boot and pull it off. See the clips on the side. Remove the rubber insulator. And finally the inner rubber boot. This has a flange that secures it to the hole in the floor. Just pull it up and out for now. Here's the rubber boot. Note the flange which secures it into the floor. Now we have the shifter going into the support arm. We'll remove the bushing by twisting it with a pair of needle nose pliers and pulling it out. This will all be discarded. Here's our shifter arm, and we'll go back under the car, and now we'll remove the shifter arm. The forward has been released by pulling the pin that we removed previously. Just push it out of the bracket and push the whole arm forward to remove it from the rear mount. Here's our shifter arm. There's the original bushing. This will get replaced.